Hope everyone has been having a good week. This is the Coach U show here on Startup Club. Coach U hosts this show every Thursday evening at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And Dennis touches on a wide range of interesting topics around digital marketing and startups. And tonight it looks like we're going to be talking about hiring a virtual assistant. So Dennis should be here in a moment. And as we get started, we'll have a chance to bring some people up on stage. If you have a question, you'll be able to ask Dennis a question. And if you're interested in what's going on at Startup Club, you can visit startup.club, which is the website for Startup Club. Find recordings of past episodes of You Show and many other shows that are done regularly here at Startup Club. And you can also sign up for our mailing list so that you can be informed of upcoming special events and speakers. A couple of weeks ago, we had Jeffrey Moore, the author of Crossing the Chasm. He was in the Serial Entrepreneur Hour on Startup Club, which is on Friday afternoons at 2, and that was a great discussion. You could find the replay and the recording of that show there if you're a fan of Jeffrey Moore and his books. I highly recommend it. He was terrific. First time he was ever on Clubhouse, and he did a great job, if I do say so myself. So let me see what's up with Coach U. He should be here in a moment. Let me see if I can find him. I know he was messaging me a few minutes ago that he was outdoors and had a sketchy signal, but he was going to try to make it.
I'm here. I was
Like
messing
magic.
around with the
Welcome.
microphone.
No worries. How are you? You.
What you is the question, Jeffrey and all of our friends. Tell me, can you hear me okay? I'm in
It's
Las Vegas in
dipping
the
in and out a
raccoon.
little bit. It's a little bit hard to make out what you're saying. Maybe move to a slightly different place. Try again.
Let's do the best we can. Actually, Mark is going to drive to another part here, and we're going to find another part with better reception here.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm having.
No, I said
What's that?
no worries.
Yeah, a little. Okay. Yeah. And today's topic virtual assistant because a lot of us do.
Yeah, Dennis, it's still hard to hear you, but I think you're saying today's topic is hiring a virtual assistant. You want to see if we can hear you now?
It is.
That's
All right.
better. That's
Well,
better right there.
why don't you start the room
That
off, Jeffrey?
it's good right
Okay,
now. Where
good.
you are
Let's
right
stop here.
now is good.
Let's stop here. Yeah. Yeah, good. I'm trying to get my friend to stop so we can do this. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do multiple things at the same time. I apologize. I need to get myself settled. I apologize.
No worries,
So
Dennis.
today
We've
we're
had.
talking about.
Go ahead.
All
Go ahead,
right.
Dennis.
This is like a. So today's topic is about hiring a virtual assistant. And a lot of us doing things that we should not be doing because it's not worth our time. And we know we need to hire a VA, but we don't know how. And it seems difficult. We see other friends of ours that have VAs. And I want to break down some of the common myths and talk practically about what it is to hire a VA, the most common mistakes. Because imagine if you don't have, I just out of curiosity, this is not for asking questions, but just to do a poll, the hand raise. Raise your hand if you are interested in hiring a VA. Maybe you don't have a VA, or maybe you already have one and you want to get more. I just want to get a sense of the room here. Hit that hand raise button. Should be in the bottom there, is it?
Yeah, it's there, and the number's growing. 10 so far. I'm shooting up there. 11.
I think maybe you have to make me a moderator so I can see that.
Oops, sorry.
There we go.
We were so focused on getting your signal straight that I forgot. Sorry about that.
All right. So that's good. So we can clear that now. In 5 days from now, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah to hang out with my friend John Jonas, who's the founder of onlinejobs.ph. He has the world's largest VA site. He has over 1 million virtual assistants. I've been to his house multiple times. It's a mansion, but you'll never see it because one time I was at his house And I pulled out my phone to record a 1-minute video and saying, hey, we're here with John Jonas, and check it out. He's got a dirt track all the way around his house and a farm and all these amazing indoor, outdoor pool, a garden. And he said, no, Dennis, put the phone away. And I said, why is that? And he said, because we don't want our friends in the Philippines who are making $3 an hour, or where the average wage is like $360 a month, like $10 a day, to see that I live in a place like this. And I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And he built this site, I'm going to say 13, 14 years ago. And since then, we've hired hundreds of virtual assistants. For those of you that maybe you've not hired VAs, or you don't want to spend the whole time with us here to talk about some of the detail of hiring VAs, I'm going to give you a quick summary, okay? Ready, Mr. Jeffrey and everyone else? Here's what you need to know. Hire a VA to do one thing. There's no such thing as a super VA that can do your video editing and graphics and appointments and PPC and WordPress and landing pages. One VA per role. There's 6 different roles. If you want to know what those roles are and the associated training, you can just message Stephanie at blitzmetrics.com, which is another one of our VAs, and we'll give you our training on how to do it, including all the different messages and what you say. Training method. 95% of the people who will apply are disqualified. So you can't wade through resumes. You can't interview these people. You just will not have the time. When you have a job post, it might be 300, 400 people that will apply for that job. And so what we see all the time, for those of you who've done this before, you know what I'm talking about. You'll get hundreds of these people, and most of them, they can't read directions. They can't speak good English. You just easy to fit the stereotype of the VA of they're just not very good and we want to hire American or whatever it might be. Yes and no. There are great quality ones out there. There's literally millions of them out there that can do digital marketing. You must have a screening process. We have a 5-stage screening process. Some people will think that it's arduous, that they have to jump through a bunch of hoops. They don't want to do it. And it's exactly those people we want to disqualify, because they're not willing to put in the time to learn what we do. So if they're applying to be a video editor, they've got to actually edit some videos. If you're a clown applying to juggle in the circus, I want to see you juggle. I don't care how many years you've been a clown, what kind of balls you use to juggle, who else you juggle for. I want to see you juggle. You're a designer. I want to give you a real thing to do, not look at your portfolio, which may or may not be what you did or you worked as part of a team. Like, I want to see you follow instructions. Number 3, I want to make sure that you're using our keyword. So for each of the job posts, we have a particular keyword. Could be like meerkat. Use the keyword meerkat in the subject line. We'll bury that inside the job posting to see whether people are paying attention. And so when these 95% of people in their subject line to apply say, I'm interested in the design job, I'm the VA for you, or you should hire us, or when can we schedule an interview? Automatic DQ, because they didn't put the keyword. So we have different animal terms. It could be meerkat or rabbit or squirrel or raccoon, or we have different keywords that correspond to different job roles. So we have these, what appears to be a long job post, and in the middle, we bury it saying, to see if you're paying attention, please use the keyword rabbit in your subject line. Just a quick way to tell. And you guys know about this, the whole brown M&Ms thing, Van Halen, to see whether the crew is paying attention as part of the contract, right? Brown M&Ms backstage. If we didn't see a bowl of brown M&Ms, then the rest of the setup might not be safe, or they might have forgotten various details. The other part is, if you hire a VA, you must have associated training with that. You could have the most amazing designer, most amazing whatever, landing page editor, PPC person, but if you don't hire them into a role, they're going to fail, right? You hire people who are competent, you make sure there's training so they can see what it is, you show examples of what that is, and then they fit into a role that's based on a process. So the difference between hiring someone on Fiverr, which is project-oriented, freelancer, right, or a consultant, those are all project-driven. But when you hire a VA, you're going to hire them into a process. A process is an ongoing thing. And my buddy Bijal Parmar, who is one of the top, he hired all the VAs for Davin Michael and those kinds of guys. He's a behind the scenes kind of guy. I think he's got like 700 VAs on his team. He says that projects cost you money and processes make you money. So think about, what are those ongoing things that you need that's worth investing in a VA for. They will continue to do that process on an ongoing basis. And that's why we have these 6 roles: graphics designer, video editor, which we're now training them on Descript so they get a lot faster and don't even need to use like Premiere and After Effects. Content specialist, which ties with video and graphics. Operations, which is project management, setting up Basecamp, client sorts of things. If you have an agency, you definitely need operation sorts of people. Digital plumbing, which is also engineering, so setting up pixels and tag manager and data and other analytics kinds of pieces. And what is the last piece? Oh, ads, right? Setting up ads. So Google ads, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, TikTok ads. So all these pieces intersect. Ideally, you will have all of them covered, and eventually you hire 6 VAs. And then once you have 4 or 5 VAs, you hire a project manager VA to manage these other VAs. So you don't have to manage all these VAs. And those things come, you don't have to worry about hiring like 6 people off the bat, hire a couple to start with. And then on an ongoing basis, make sure that they are being managed. If you don't manage these VAs, if you don't have an SOD and an EOD, start of day and end of day process, your stuff's going to fall apart. Ideally, you have a big enough team that in the Philippines, you have someone who's actually there on site in an office, physically having people be there and check in. But since Corona times, we found that not just us, but other friends, we have an SOD, kind of like a daily stand up, 5 minutes check in, whatever the start of their shift is, where they're there, and an EOD at the end of the day where they write 3 things. What did you do that day? What are you going to do, which is for the next day? And what do you need from us? What are blockages? What are dependencies? What are things that they're stuck on? So we find this process works super well. Our buddy John Jonas, who I told you started onlinejobs.ph, he wrote a book called The Outsourcing Lever, which goes into detail on how exactly you manage a VA. A lot of people, they hire VAs and they fail because they don't realize that there are all these different things you have to do to manage a VA who's halfway across the country. And you can't just give them something and expect them to do it. You have to have a management process. Maybe initially you have to get that going. It takes a bit of time to train them up and can be a little frustrating at times. But the main reason you hire VA, which is my second to last point, is not because of a cost advantage. It's because you can afford to invest in someone who will do that function day in and day out for years. Our guy Juan, who is our process manager, he's got all of our SOPs, all of our checklists, documenting all of our tasks, all the courses. He's been with me 3.5, 4 years. And he started out $3 an hour. I think it's at $12 an hour now, and about to raise him to 14. If he asked for 15, I'd probably pay it just because I need him. He's so good. I knew that it was worthwhile to invest in him because he's not going to be like a freelancer that's going to dip out 3 months later. And that's what we see when we hire young adults or hire people who are someone on Fiverr or whatever. They're good. You guys know what I'm talking about. You hire someone on Fiverr, no slam on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever, because they're good at, these people are good at getting a project done. And then after the project, who knows? Maybe they're not available. Maybe they move to Indonesia. Who knows what's going on? But ongoing process, dedicated employees you can afford to invest. And that's really where the advantage is. It's not because you're hiring them for $500 a month full time. Yes, that's an advantage. That's nice. Yes, you can get work done twice as fast because they're working while you're working or while you're sleeping, assuming you know how to coordinate so that someone's always working, you're working, and then you go to bed, they're working, that kind of thing. So there's advantages like that. But the biggest one, when you talk to other people that hire VAs, is they know your business. They know how you like to do things. And it just becomes increasingly valuable to you. And the last piece is you want to have a way to measure their performance so they can level up. Some people think that this is the 13th month bonus in December. It's called the 13th month bonus. You give them an extra month to pay. It's legally required by the government in the Philippines to do that. You, as an American or Western employer, don't have to do that. If you're hiring VAs out of India, maybe because they're better at project management or web design or programming, out of the Ukraine for things like animation or math or analytical kinds of things, or Colombia, or like my buddy Chasey Height in Nicaragua for more design and agency backend support stuff. There's different countries that have different sort of reputations for what their VAs are good at. You want to think about how you reward this kind of performance. We have a leveling system. So in addition to the 6 different roles, we have 6 levels. We have everyone start at level 1 at $3 an hour, and they move up based on performance. Some people will come in and say, I'm already ready to start at $12 an hour. Great. You do that, we will move you up immediately to the rate that you have proven that you're able to do. So
You're breaking up again, Dennis.
always hire provisionally. Yeah, you always hire provisionally. You never just say, okay, you're in and you're full time, because now all of a sudden they're in the employee mindset. They feel like they've made it and they don't need to earn anything. When you hire people, put them on a 30-day provisional hire, and you say, great, congratulations, you made it through the interview process. Here's the training. You've demonstrated you can do some of these tasks. We're going to give you some initial projects. Now, our next phase is a 30-day provisional where we believe that you're going to do well. We are giving you an opportunity to prove that. We want to work with you, make sure you like it too. And if that works well, then you will become full-time, a regular team member after those 30 days. So that's my summary of, for those of you that don't want to stay the whole time, that will give you most of the issues that we see. Actually, I'll add one more bonus item, which is the case of the disappearing VA. A lot of you guys, you hire a VA and they don't reply, then they ghost you. They're not there for a few days. You wonder what's going on. Then later they tell you after the fact, not in advance, that there was a flood, the power went out, a relative got sick, it's a national holiday. And you're like, are they like jerking my chain? Is it really a national holiday? Man, what's the deal going on with all this? And what you'll find is that, yes, that it's true. Like in the Philippines, they have power outages all the time. They have floods, typhoons. It's crazy. It's like a Bollywood movie in India. But the other part too, which is the one that gets most of our Western sorts of people, is the Filipino culture is so friendly and so, what's the word, like non-confrontational, that if they don't understand something, they'll just not say anything, and they hope that you will know. This is going to sound crazy for those of you who've never hired a VA, but literally some of these VAs, when they get stuck, they don't know how to do something, or they make a mistake, you're like, nope, you did that wrong. They get offended, then they go hide. They will say, it's your responsibility as the boss to make sure that I know what I'm doing, and to let me know if there's a problem and make sure that I'm happy. So you have to have some kind of an ESP. That's why you have to have the start of day and end of day. You have to have that check-in. If you just allow them to work whenever they want, then you're going to get erratic results. They're going to work. A lot of us too have the same issue, right? If ever since COVID, where maybe we didn't have to go to an office anymore, it's harder to get work done because of the dog, because of Netflix, because of whatever it might be. And the same thing is true over there. So you have to have that sort of management in place. You have to have clear rules. We have penalties. If they don't show up, then their pay gets, if they ignore a certain number of messages, they get demoted down a level, which also hurts their pay. 3 strikes, you're out. So you have to have those kinds of components. I'd also like to open it up to now comments and questions that you guys have about hiring a VA. Maybe you hired a VA, maybe you have a question for a particular project that you have, if it's suitable, how you might approach it. Jeffrey, help us out.
Yeah, go ahead and raise your hands and I'll bring you up. But Dennis, I think it's interesting. One of the things you brought up that really struck a nerve with me, because I've tried personally to hire a VA once and it wasn't a good experience. But as I listened to you, I think it was more my fault than the VA's fault, because I didn't do what you just recommended. I didn't really, first of all, I didn't test the person beforehand to see if they could follow directions. And that's such a strong bit of advice, because by definition, a virtual assistant is not with you. It's not someone you can walk into the room and look over their shoulder and give them some advice along the way during the day. So you're handing off instructions. They're in a different time zone, and you want to wake up in the morning and know that stuff got done. If you're not giving clear instructions and they can't follow clear instructions, it's not going to work. So I've personally made that mistake, and I'm making a note not to make it again, because I would like to try to work with a VA again. And we've had people work for us at Dot Club from the Philippines, so I've had some experience dealing with them. But when I tried it personally, I didn't do a good job. But the other interesting point is a lot of what you're talking about for virtual assistants, and you touched on this, Dennis, actually now applies to any business with regular employees because of so many of us working remotely now. Having that daily huddle, the start of day and the end of day meetings, going over those three little simple points. What'd you accomplish yesterday? What are you focused on today? Are you stuck with anything? Doing that even with regular employees, not just VAs, is something that's super important and very beneficial to businesses today.
Amen. The funny thing is that when you're the boss, the buck stops with you. And if there's a problem with your VA, guess whose fault it is? It it really is about learning how to be a manager. And most people, they don't have experience managing. They think they know how to be a manager because it's easy to, when you're an employee, when you have experience being an employee, to blame the boss. But man, have you guys ever been, any of you guys have ever been a manager for the first time? It is tough. And you never want to be an employee on a team where the manager's a first time manager, because it's just going to, it's like learning how to drive stick. You don't want to have the car where someone's learning how to drive stick. They're going to grind the gears all the time. So really your ability to manage is key to learning how to hire multiple VAs. And I'll say something that will seem potentially slightly offensive. The VA, when you start hiring one or two or three of them and you start to get better at, it's like when your child has a pet for the first time. It's like teaching them how to give directions, how to care, how it's a real human being on the other side of the planet, that then sets you up to be able to manage employees that are in the office, which then allows you to manage teams of people and even teams of people. And I can tell you the breakthrough you have when you can start to delegate things out instead of you having to do it, where stuff that just comes in, stuff you want to get done, stuff that's on your to-do list, you just parcel out. So everything is driven by a checklist. It's an amazing feeling, because now instead of feeling overwhelmed, you're like, you know what? It's just a matter of, I'm going to delegate out more, right? If there's more stuff on my plate, I'm just going to keep delegating out more. So I got to hire more. So the bottleneck becomes hiring more people, because now you are a business owner working on the business instead of in the business of being a worker yourself. All right, let's take some questions. We have some of our friends or comments. Will Carter, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. I'm Will Carter. I'm the CEO of a company called WeProsper.com. It's a startup, so we're launching, budget's tight. So I'm trying to get an idea of what kind of budget I need to be setting up for a VA.
What do you want the VA to do? What's your number one most automatable, mundane kind of thing that you want to get off your plate or your team?
My team has a terrible time scheduling. We have a lot of different work processes, and so just trying to figure out that whole laying out the project piece of it, of this A comes before B comes before C is blocking D and that kind of thing. So I would really like somebody that's just literally sitting there focused, going through our project timelines and syncing them up. So when we sit down, we can actually look at, okay, when are we delivering? What's our roadmap? Where are the blockages in our
Mm-hmm.
roadmap? So that's just an example of the kind of work that's going on a weekly
Okay.
basis in a very dynamic environment that we'd like to have somebody do. I don't
So
know if
that's
that's
more
too
like,
skilled for VA or not, but
it depends. So is that more like project management and negotiating between
yes,
teams? Okay. And this requires
absolutely.
then, I would imagine, real-time availability instead of offline work, because they've got to be there to coordinate, handle.
So typically what's happening is we are figuring out what our timelines are doing,
Uh-huh.
and then we have to harmonize, and that's really what I'm looking for someone to do, is to help us continue to remain harmonized. And a project timeline will shift or we'll add some scope, and then what happens is now we got to go and talk to two or three different team members, negotiate, figure out what's going on, what
Mm-hmm.
impacts what. And whereas, if I had a VA, they could sit down and say, okay,
Yeah.
this moved out, and it's not
Yeah.
super mental work, but it's just once you know how to do it, you can just continue to do it, and that's why I think a VA could do it.
Okay. Does it require subject matter expertise, or can someone who's a strong project manager and organizer be able to do it?
Does not require subject matter expertise, in my
Okay.
opinion, because we're literally laying out the timelines. We're literally
Okay.
saying this move, scope got added, that's not
Got it.
happening. So
Okay.
that's happening. But that whole
Okay.
process of now canonizing it so that now it's useful to the team, that's
Okay.
where we're running into a challenge.
Okay. Good. Two last questions. One, is it more a matter of coordinating, harmonizing, figuring out scheduling, or are there some politics involved from people who are maybe difficult to deal with potentially, or demanding?
We're a
Right.
startup.
The EQ side
Yeah,
of
we're a
things.
startup team, so everybody's demanding. But I won't say it's a lot of politics. It's more or less we're all drinking from a fire hose, so we're trying to figure out And so what's happening is we
Mm-hmm.
have our workload is so high that gets deprioritized. So
Okay.
folks are working in their silos, working hard, and now
Uh-huh.
what's getting missed is that opportunity to come together and say, all right, this got moved. This is a very dynamic environment. And
Okay.
so we'll have the impacts to the schedule,
Mm-hmm.
but they won't get shared in a fashion. There's a
Mm-hmm.
delay there, and that
Got it.
delay really slows the team down.
Got it. And so how many people are on your team, Will?
5.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
so
you're
we got
not this person because maybe you need someone else to be the integrator?
I'm the innovator on the team, so I have the
The idea
infinity
guy.
role,
You're
what
the
I call it.
innovator.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're the innovator, but you need an integrator. That might
exactly.
be someone more stateside in a full-time kind of role because of the nature of a rough and tumble startup with high demands. But
Right.
if you had projects that followed some kind of framework that you have documented, like
Hmm.
rolling out websites or executing for clients or something where it's more repeatable,
Hmm.
then you could probably get by with a VA who is $8 to $10 an hour. I would recommend out of India, and even
Hmm.
in the Philippines, they're willing to work our schedule. We just need to say, hey, it's 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time or whatever it is. The project managers that have the EQ and relationship side are tougher to get generally, but they are out there, and I've seen a lot from India. And just
Okay.
to stereotype a little bit, they're more likely to be able to crack the whip. The Philippines, I'm stereotyping here a little bit, but generally they're friendlier, they're more design oriented because of the innuendo and EQ side of managing. I probably wouldn't hire it out of, it's not to say you couldn't find someone out of the Philippines because I've seen it too, but this role is probably about $10 an hour. I
Hmm.
would think, take you 2 to 4 weeks to onboard someone like this, but it's
Hmm.
definitely possible. I would think the cost in the United States would probably be, depending on what part of the country, you're looking at 60,000 to 100,000 a year.
Hmm.
So you're getting it
Hmm.
cheaper, but also with the startup, the question of longevity is potentially not as important because your next milestone could be acquisition or raising money or expanding or something like that. So I would,
Yeah, I mean
like,
we're
where you are 5 people, I would hire it internally and not as a
mm,
VA.
okay. All right.
Yeah, but you
Okay.
could
I
do it as a
appreciate.
VA. Yeah, like the agency guys can do that, but because this is so core,
Hmm.
I think you potentially would be asking for too much because a VA would need time to be able to ramp up. Right. And
Yeah.
our view of a VA is the best use of VAs doing stuff that is just beyond what automation can handle, but which still requires a human, but it's not automatable quite yet.
Mm.
Got to be
Okay.
governed by an SOP. That's the main crux of a VA. There's some kind of SOP, some repetitive process. They can go through that training, get certified. But what you want is someone who is a COO type that can roll the punches and figure out what needs to be done, doing adjustments. Now, we have people on our team that can do that are VAs, but they're very hard to find. You can find them, but they're hard.
Hmm.
Hope that helps you, Will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that and great questions. Great exchange, Dennis. We've got Emily here. Emily, did you have a question or an experience you want to share with VAs you've used?
Oh, hi, Jeffrey, and hi. Thank you, Denise, for the information about virtual assistant. Actually, this is the first time I'm hearing this concept. I'm glad there is an option like this because I started my nonprofit organization last year. As a new business owner, I'm like doing everything myself. We offer online courses and from the students roster and accounting ledgers. It's a lot of work. So I'm glad there is an option like this. My question is how, from what I'm hearing, some VA may be in different countries, and how you really handle the payment to them is via what type of platform? Is it PayPal or it is a bank transfer? Like, how do we handle those?
So there's 3 or 4 different ways to pay. Probably the easiest one, even though some people will say there's ones that are specific to the Philippines or Pakistan or whatnot, is just using PayPal. And even though you're probably not supposed to, we like to select it at friends and family, so you get charged the $4.99 instead of that extra piece. There's other services where you can pay through VAs, but they're tougher to set up, and it's more work for the VA. So it really just depends on where your VAs are. There's lots of services that will do that. I wish that we could use like Venmo or bank transfer or Facebook Messenger to pay or other more consumer kinds of things. Like I love doing Zelle. We do that for a lot of our people that are 1099, but you just can't do that outside of the American banking system. We don't do wire transfer except for things that are over $1,000, and we don't have many VAs that are making over $1,000 a month. So PayPal is a great way to do things.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Emily.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And great question. Good to know. Yeah, Zelle is great. If you're in the US with US banks, Zelle is really super convenient. I use it a lot. Chastity, welcome, Chastity. Do you have a question for Dennis or an experience you want to share?
Hi, thank you. I do have a question. So I'm fairly new to virtual assistant. I was so happy that this popped up because I was just talking to my wife about this. So just a little background, I have had a mostly online business for the past 10 years. My wife and I just opened a retail space about a year ago. So I'm looking for somebody that can manage the social media aspect. So like Instagram, posting on Facebook, things like that for our businesses to take that off my plate because of just running the store day to day, and it's hard to carve out that time. Are there any like pertinent questions I should ask when I'm interviewing someone? Should I do the 30 days trial, use the same type of maybe not six roles because it's very specific, just the role that I need? But I guess just any type of help in that area for me because this is
Yeah.
very, very,
So,
very
Chastity,
new
you're
to
looking
me.
for social posting and social media management for a VA?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, you do want to interview them, and yes, you want to do a tryout, provisional phase. But before that, you need to have examples of different situations. So here's examples of posts that we've made and why we made them like this versus like that. And here's information about our firm. Because what you want to do is say, hey, we're looking for a killer, motivated social media coordinator, right? They can work anywhere, they can work their times or whatever it is that you have as your stipulations of the job. But you want to give them enough information to learn about your company and even say, look, we were looking for someone who can think for themselves. So do a little research on who we are. Then uh, here is an example situation. Write a pretend Facebook post that covers this particular kind of issue, or respond to someone in the community who says this and actually link to something like on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook saying, how would you respond to this? And that way they have to actually do something. And you're going to find that will knock out 95% of the applicants. You don't waste time interviewing them because then you end up spending an hour with each person and it'll just waste a bunch of time. And you want to give them something objectively where you can tell whether they're competent or not. And then of those people, you schedule an interview. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect. Thank
That'll
you.
save you a ton of time. Will you do that and then let us know what happens? Let us know who you hire, what happens with them, what your experience is.
Yes, definitely. And I guess another follow-up question then, do you have any like favorites of where I could look for like social media virtual assistants versus like project management, etc.?
I think generally the Philippines is the best place to hire VAs. Now, other people will argue and they'll say well, Pakistan is up and coming, and Mexico has more US time zones, and Central America has certain pockets where people speak great English, like Nicaragua. But I think for people who speak English in general, for social media management that understand American culture, it's going to be the Philippines because they love Americans. They understand our culture more than outside of more Western sorts of regions. And if you put your training and put your examples out there and you have a clear path where they initially self qualify, then go to the interview, and then go to the provisional phase, I think you're going to be very happy. Someone like this, I'm going to guess for you is going to be $4 to $5 an hour, which is about $600 a month full time, maybe $700 a month full time. And then if they do a good job, you pay them a bonus, you level them up, that kind of thing. But I think you will, for what you're doing, it is right down the center of the lane for hiring a VA. And when they can do social media management, then community management, and then even things like customer support kinds of things, because you do coaching, lightweight internal support, and then it evolves into project management, which is one level up. You're going to find that you'll be able to hire a couple VAs as your coaching business grows. And this is
Hope
Dennis
that
in your orange shed.
Thank you, Dennis Chastity. We hope that was helpful, and good luck on your quest to find a social media VA. I think it's a great way to get started. And just what Dennis said, I 100% agree with. Have them give you examples, because one of the things is you want to really see, do they get a sense of what your business is? Can they speak in your voice and really reflect the brand the way you want it reflected? And you should be able to figure that out pretty quickly if they write some examples for you. Great advice. Thank you, Chastity. Let's go to Bo next. Bo, do you have a question or an experience you want to share about VAs?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to get on stage. My question is, VA has been a big topic in my office. A lot of my office mates are looking to hire virtual assistants and whatnot, and it's a new space for us. So forgive me if you answered this already, and maybe I was late for it, but how do you find someone out the country? What networks are you guys placing your ad to hire these individuals to the team?
That's a great question. Our favorite place in general is onlinejobs.ph, where there's over 1 million Filipinos that are great at handling operations and support and writing and content and community management, graphics and video. It depends on what you need. There are other places that cater to Pakistan or even American VAs, but now you're looking at 30 to 50 bucks an hour instead of, 3 to 10 bucks an hour. There's even places like Upwork and Fiverr and sites that are more freelancer oriented than ongoing support functions or operational sorts of roles. But I would start with onlinejobs.ph. Make sure, and you can hear the replay on this because Jeffrey turned this on. Thank you, on our explanation of how you navigate finding these VAs. The thing is, you don't even have to pay any money to do this. It's free to post on onlinejobs.ph. I think you can pay a few dollars to get access to different sorts of admin tools, to buy training for your VAs, and you can join different groups where people talk about hiring VAs. There's groups for the VAs themselves. You're going to find, Bo, this is an incredible time saver. People are going to argue about whether VAs are destroying the American economy because it's not American jobs or whatever. But our view of it is, look, our businesses are growing. We need to get stuff done. There's certain things that are just not the right thing for Americans to do. And plus, for every American that we hire, we need to hire another 3 VAs so that we can make that American's time more valuable. And it's still great for the VA because they're doing well in their country for their standards, and we're doing well for us. But what I don't want is someone in America, and look, this is actually a very patriotic thing to say. This is not like an anti-American thing. I don't want someone in America who lives in San Francisco, where the standard of living and cost of living is high, doing tasks that are $3 an hour. You know what I mean? So get the highest and best use of your time. So hope that helps, Bo.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Dennis, you made a good point. I should reiterate for those of you who may have joined the room midstream, we are recording this, and we do have replays turned on, so you can listen to the replay of the show, and you'll hear Dennis give his little opening where he goes through the 6 different types of VAs that are recommended, and some of the stages that they go through, and some of the best practices for finding and vetting out the right VA for you. So you can hear that at the beginning of this show, either at startup.club where the recording will be, or by going to the replay here in Clubhouse. And you can find the replays in my profile or in Dennis's profile or on the page for Startup Club here in Clubhouse. Thank you, Bo. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's go to Lori next. Lori.
Hey, thank you both very much. Jeffrey, Dennis, you're always so generous, and I so appreciate you sharing all your knowledge about this. First of all, I'm founder and owner of the Database Diva, which is a digital agency I've had for 15 years, and I've dabbled in it over the years. But last year, my big aha moment was reading Who Not How, and now I'm obsessed that I'm hiring the right person for the right job as my first go-to instead of trying to do everything myself. Which I've been guilty of for many years. So my question though is, Dennis, what is a typical day like for you in managing? And I know you've got managers who manage your managers now, but when you were starting with the hiring, how much of your time is spent preparing for making sure that your VAs are productive for you? Not necessarily building the SOPs, I'll just take that as a given, but in terms of going into base camp, putting in assignments, figuring out what the resources were that they were going to need, all those kinds of things. Like, what does a typical day look like when you're getting started with someone?
Yeah, Lori, so there's no typical day because we respond to whatever the current priority is. And sometimes the whole day is dedicated towards training because we're onboarding or because we're launching a new program. And some days we're focusing on just executing. Some days we're, who knows, we're spending time in a mastermind and learning. So think of it as like an airplane. And I've seen you over the years, Lori, so I think you'll appreciate this. And everyone else here who's a business owner or you're doing consulting, especially as an agency, an airplane has different stages, right? So you're on the runway and you're taking off. You are climbing, getting up to cruise altitude. You are descending, you're landing. There's different things you're focusing on at different points. But in general, what I like to do is break my time into thirds. Now, this is going to come as a surprise when I mention this, because a lot of you guys are going to say it's not possible, but I spend a third of my time doing. So that means like actually working on projects, actually doing things for the business. And that includes things like often managing too. And then what am I doing the other 2/3 of the time? 1/3 of the time I'm spending learning. Because if you don't allocate that time to learn, if you're not sharpening the saw, you're not advancing your skill, especially when you have things like digital marketing and social media that advance very quickly. You've got to keep investing in your skill. And the other third of the time is teaching. So teaching is building training, it's recording Loom videos, it is coaching, but we're recording it in Zoom so that way we can turn it into checklists and training and tasks that are repeatable in Basecamp, stuff we put inside LearnDash, which is our learning management system inside WordPress, SOPs and courses and guides, and all different ways that people can consume training. It can be weekly internal team training. So we like to look at these three different components of learning, doing, and teaching. So 1/3 each, right? Learn, do, teach. Because most entrepreneurs, when they're starting out, it's just them. They've not built a team. They don't know how to manage a team. So they spend all their time doing because it's expensive to hire other people. It takes time. They don't know how to do it. And it's just more comfortable to focus on doing the thing. You know how the trouble is if you're spending 80, 90%, or even 110% of your time doing, you have no time to learn and you have no time to teach. And if you don't get into a habit where when you've done something, immediately recording it and making it so that it's teachable. It could be as you're doing something, you just have your Loom or Descript open or screen recorder or whatever it is on how you're doing something so that someone else can do what you've done. If there are things that you've done, like Lori, I know it's true for you as the database diva, if there's things that you've done more than 3 times, you need to
Yep.
be recording how to do it so someone else can. And even if that's someone else you're not able to hire, you don't have the budget to hire, you're not ready to hire, you still want to record it now because you're going to be so glad when you onboard somebody. You can say, look, here's the 5 different sorts of things that we like to do that I want you to do. And I've already recorded how to do it. Go study it. And you can even use that material to qualify someone to see whether that you'd even want to hire them. Because how is someone going to know whether it's going to be good to work with you unless they can see what it is? And you say, look, I've already demonstrated how to do this particular task. You can see in advance if this is something you know how to do or want to learn how to do or know how, can competently do it. And then you don't waste all that time and money having to hire them and train them one-on-one. God forbid you lose that person because they churn out, which is a very expensive thing. Then all that time you spent mentoring that person is thrown out. It goes down the toilet. It's just really bad. So learning, doing, and teaching, 1/3 each, is how you're going to have your business in balance, whether it's just you as a sole proprietor or people I see that have much bigger businesses. They also follow a similar methodology. In fact, the guys who run really big businesses, like my buddy Eric Huberman or JC Height, these are other friends that run larger agencies with 300, 500 some people. They're probably 40, 20, 40 on learning, doing, and teaching. So the more you can shift out of the doing, if you find that you're overflowing with tasks and you're being reactive to stuff that's coming your way because your inbox is full and you can't keep up and you're overwhelmed, that tells me you're spending all your time doing and you're not investing in learning and teaching. You should be able to have enough of your time, ideally, at least 50% of your time to be proactive, where you're chasing things that you want to do instead of having to respond to clients and emergencies and that kind of thing. Does that resonate with you, Lori? Does that make sense? What do you
Yeah,
think?
that's super helpful. And can I just add one more question on the end?
Yeah.
How do you handle email? Because I don't know if I want someone in my regular email, but that's where all my client communication is, and that's what I need help with.
I would imagine most of the things that come to you, Lori, don't actually require Lori to be there, but people don't know any better. So either they make the mistake of copying everybody, which is just flooding everybody's mailboxes,
Hmm.
or they just come to you because after all, they could come to this other person, but it's just so much better just to come to you. So everyone comes to you for support, which is understandable because, hey, Lori's going to know it the best. So I'm just going to ping her, right? I'm going to Skype her or text her or call her while she's in the middle of something and interrupt her productivity just because it's more convenient for me because I don't understand asynchronous communication. What can be an email versus I need to interrupt her right now. So we teach RACI. RACI is a standard project management methodology, responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. And ownership, the person who's in charge, the buck stops with them. They make sure success happens is A. Like project leader, account manager, owner, right? The A. Responsible, accountable, that's the A. Consulted, informed, you are going to be the A for the company, and you may be the A on certain projects, but you may have account managers or project people where they're responsible, and so they don't need to bring you in unless they believe you need to. Because if they're in charge, then you don't have to be watching everything. You don't have to be the eye of Zoran scanning for whatever's going on. So most people, because they don't know any better, clients especially, and new team members, they just copy everybody. And that results in a flood of you dealing with things that are just not worth your time. We have a 9-level system in our company. There's 6 levels for the VAs, but in our company overall, there's 9 levels. And people we instruct, try to think for yourself. It doesn't mean you're all alone, having to figure out everything and Google it. No one will help you, but learn when to reach out, learn how to Google things and look at our training, because the odds of someone on our team or a client asking a question that has not been asked in the last 25 years is zero, pretty much zero.
Yeah,
And we have training on
awesome.
it, right? So that way we know that things can be handled at the lowest level. Now, I happen to be a level 9 in our system. Now, if someone says, hey, how do I reset my password? How do I get access to Basecamp? Hey, for this PPC campaign, should I increase the bid? Or what do you think about this one video here? How much should we bill this client? What should you do in this situation that someone's mad? Or none of those require me, because those are level 1 to 4 typical kinds of questions, right? So if you train your people, this is going to sound insulting, but if you train your people and explicitly tell them to think for themselves, and you have high quality people, you'd be surprised at how amazing your people can be.
That's awesome, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
A great discussion, great advice. We're coming up close to the top of the hour, so we have time certainly to get a question or comment from Clear. Welcome to Coach U.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Denise. My name is Caroline. It sounds CLLR is Counselor Caroline Carlo. Thank you. I'm just happy to be in this room. Coach, you hiring virtual assistant. Just wondering, as a CEO or director of a company, if you want to use new VAs, how are you going to monitor them if they are working remotely for doing their job?
So, Carolyn, you ask a good question. So, as the CEO of the company, you're responsible for stuff getting done. The buck stops with you. And that means that all people in the company, whether they're VAs or other particular roles, have to be accountable to some sort of KPI. It can be a quantitative or a qualitative measure, or both. Quantitative tends to be more support oriented. How many tasks do they get done? How many hours do they work? How many posts do they make? How many projects do they touch? How many phone calls do they have? And qualitative can be, did we make money? Is the client happy? Other sorts of things that are more like revenue oriented even, right? And VAs are no different. We like to have VAs have a start of day and the end of day, and you can listen to the recording I talked about that in my opening segment. I always open every episode of Coach U with my summary, usually 10 minutes long, and you'll see how we look at holding VAs accountable. The key thing is that you have to have a start and an end of day Each of the VAs we hire into one of 6 different roles. You may have more or fewer, but we recommend 6 if it's related to marketing or operations. And they have clear job functions where they know what they're supposed to do and how we measure the output of their task. So a mistake that we see, one of our earlier guests asked about social media posting, which is a common thing that you hire VAs for. You could have a VA just post to Twitter once a day and write 1 blog post a week and do a quantitative thing. But if they don't understand your business, if they don't understand that engagement's important and we need to say the right things, not just mindlessly be posting things, then technically they're satisfying the requirement because they're making X number of posts, but they're not doing it in a way that reflects who we are. And that's often a training and a management issue combined. So you as a CEO, whether you're the CEO of a small company or you have thousands of employees, you're going to have the same thing where your overall company KPIs, which you're responsible for, translate down into KPIs that are owned by other people, different projects that roll up into the overall company, all the way down to particular tasks. And the task level work is what's done by the VAs. And everyone should be able to see that roll up from the bottom level all the way up. Does that help, Carolyn?
Yes. My next question is about when they log in, whether they log in early or late. It's, for example, going to work. We know when somebody sign in physically, but when you are doing it remotely, you don't know the time they start and the
Yeah.
time they finish. So how actually are
Yeah.
you going to monitor that?
We
For
do.
example,
And there's multiple ways
okay,
to do it. Yeah. So we like to use TimeCamp that's integrated in Basecamp, which ties to the particular tasks. And but if you
okay,
want to be stricter, there's other tools that will actually randomly take screenshots every few minutes to make sure they're still working. If you hire someone on Upwork, for example, and it could be even someone who's a regular team member, but you just rather have the monitoring mechanism that's inside Upwork, it holds them
okay.
accountable to make sure they're working.
I see. Okay,
Yeah. So I really like TimeCamp integrated with Basecamp because it allows whether they're a freelancer or a regular employee or a VA to be able to track their time and automatically tie it to the task that they're working on. And that way it's frictionless. It's not much effort. They don't have to spend all this time with timesheets and billing and that, which is a real pain if you're a freelancer or a VA. And everyone can come in and see, okay, it looks like Mary spent 60% of her time on this project and this much here. And in a non-policing micromanagement kind of way, we can help them improve. So you're right, time tracking is important, but don't let time tracking be more important than actually driving the results because you don't want the bureaucracy, the tax to get in the way of what you're actually trying to do.
okay. How can you get that? Where do you get them? The time count?
Oh, so TimeCamp is a piece of software that we've used for many years. And TimeCamp will integrate with most of the project management systems that are out there. I think TimeCamp charges like $1.70 per user per month. So let's say you have 10 people, you're paying $17 a month, which is nothing. We happen to use Basecamp as well, which is $100 a month for project management with unlimited users and unlimited projects. So we're literally paying whatever, like $250 a month to be able to do project management across our people.
Okay. Can somebody in UK hire some of your staff you train?
You can use our training, and we can, if you're part of our membership group, we can even help you hire, but we don't share out our team members because we believe that a VA should work for a particular company and they should stay loyal because they believe in employment, like lifetime employment, where they stick with that company. They're not shifting around and doing freelancing and that kind of thing. So it certainly makes sense because the price is so low that you should have your own VA. And we want everyone to be able to hire their own team of VAs.
That's great. Thank you, Dennis. And thank you,
Thank
Carolyn.
you.
You
Thank
can
you.
listen to the replay. And if you missed the beginning of the show, Dennis goes through a lot of these details. And of course, you can follow him and go to Blitzmetric and get more Blitzmetrics and get more information as well. We have time for one last question tonight from Garrett. Welcome to the Coach U Show.
Hey, thank you. I know you guys are talking about VAs, and I joined the group a little bit late. This is my first time with the group, but has anybody have any experience with ISAs or used their VAs for ISA?
What's the ISA stands for? Lots of different acronyms. What is it in this case?
Internal sales agent.
That you can for inside sales, but typically because there's a lot of performance-based compensation, not going to be a good fit. We see that like house moms, just like you see with JetBlue, or even think you could hire VAs for appointment setters, more like the
Mhm.
outbound and SDRs, lead gen and booking appointments, that kind of stuff. But inside sales, I think it's going to be tougher that because that requires more relationship level nuance, if that makes sense.
And I think I got a good ISA now. I'm still learning. I've made my mistakes, and I don't know if this group is about, but I treat him a little bit like a virtual assistant, or he
Mm-hmm.
will be transitioning into a virtual assistant if he succeeds. But as far as an ISA, it kind of starts from there for me.
Yeah. So Garrett, you bring up a good point, and something that I forgot to mention earlier is that most people look at VAs as low end work, like menial kinds of stuff that's repetitive, that is driven by a checklist, which is true. That's what a lot of it is. My buddy who founded onlinejobs.ph, which is the world's largest VA marketplace, he's changed the term VA, or he's trying to change it and create another acronym called OFS, which is offshore assistant. Because I'll tell you something, I'm actually the world's highest paid VA. And a lot of us are actually VAs, believe it or not. It's like in Westworld where Bernard wakes up and realizes that he's a robot too, because a lot of us, like in the Matrix, like we don't realize we're actually robots. A VA technically is someone who's working virtually, but they could be very skilled. They can be closing deals. They could be doing ISA work that you're talking about, Garrett. But the term VA is increasingly seen as a pejorative, right? It's seen as negative. But there are different levels of VAs. And arguably, I'm at the very top of the VA list because we manage and train an army of different VAs. But think about what kinds of things are lower level service, like support kinds of things, all the way up to like true biz dev, where you're using existing clients and relationships to be able to parlay them into more deals, which I would, depending on what your definition of ISA is, it could fit. But generally, we're talking about people who are offshore where they can speak English, but they're not as fluent as we are here, which
Right.
precludes them from developing relationships or doing sales commission driven kinds of work.
And I got two that are offshore right now that I'm working with right now. So yeah, I get what you're saying, but mostly they're doing is just cold calling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
VAs
yeah.
all over can do
Do you
that.
Yeah, do you guys use do you have any experience in as far as cold calling and the systems and everything?
We know a lot of folks that do that, that have services where they do the booking, or they could like even services like Fancy Hands, which I absolutely love. I've used them for like 8 or 9 years. They can do outbound calling, but generally the call centers, it could be like even if you're bigger, like a West Teleservices, some people have outbound calls or inbound support centers. They're going to be vertical specific.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find that it's not just, there's some people that claim they can do it, but you're going to want to work with people that do outbound that specialize in your industry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Because yeah, our biggest thing that we're running into, I think I train them pretty good, but biggest thing we run into is the fact that the phone numbers that we're using and the amount of people that we're actually contacting is very slim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. House moms are a great way to do this. There are a
Which one?
lot of house moms, like moms in Utah that have
Okay.
extra time. You pay them 12 to 16 bucks an hour and they do great. They are
Really?
technically VAs, but it's not the Filipino kind of VA because they speak fantastic English. You pay them some kind of base hourly and then some kind of commission.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Based on deals that are won or closed or opportunities, however you guys want to do it. Rev share.
Yeah, our biggest thing is just trying to get a hold of people because most people don't answer their phone that
Yeah.
they don't know. or it just comes up spam risk and then you got to recycle the number again. It's
Yeah.
just an ongoing process.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you,
So
Garrett.
say what?
Oh, just saying thank you. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great.
Mr.
Well,
Jeffrey.
Dennis, we're at the top of the hour. Great advice, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Guys, give Jeffrey a round of applause. Jeffrey's been here every week. His team from Startup Club has been managing this show, transcribing them, putting them up on startup.club. Jeffrey's volunteering, just like I'm volunteering, so we're not getting paid to do this. He's also the CMO of paw.com. And even though I've done a lot of the talking here, I like to say people who know don't say, and people who say don't know. So Jeffrey's really the pro here. And like, I feel honored that he's even here in our room here helping moderate, but he's the one we really should be listening to, not me. Follow the guy in the red background, not the orange background up here. I'm so grateful that Jeffrey's here.
I'm grateful for you, Dennis. And I actually, even though I've been in business for over 40 years, every week when we do this show, I've got my notepad out, my Remarkable 2, and I'm always taking notes and I'm always learning from you. So it's a pleasure for me to be here. It also helps me get better. So my 30% learning, part of that is hanging out with you every Thursday night. So thank you for that, Dennis.
Amen, Jeffrey, and take us out, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been another great episode of the Coach U Show, hosted by Coach U himself, Dennis Yu, here on Startup Club. You can join us every Thursday evening at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time here in Startup Club. As we mentioned earlier, we record this show. You can find the recording over at startup.club, and we have the replays turned on here in Clubhouse. So if you liked what you heard tonight, if you learned about it, feel free to click on that replay and share it, or just listen to it again so you can make copious notes too. Thanks again, everyone. Hope to see you at another Coach U show very soon. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, and wishing you guys massive success in hiring VAs. We want to hear your stories. Let us know what's working, what's not working. Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone.